On behalf of the Center for Teaching Excellence, I'd like to welcome you to our special webinar on recovering from canceled classes. My name is Augie Grant, Director of the Center for Teaching Excellence. With me today is Aisha Haynes, the Assistant Director of CTE, and together we're going to provide you some ideas, some tips and tricks and things to keep in mind as we try to compensate for what has been a disruption in the term. Before we start, I want to look at the big picture. The primary thing to keep in mind at this stage when you have any disruption like this is that disruptions always happen. Sometimes it's weather related, sometimes it affects the whole university, sometimes there's just one student who's affected by a personal problem or family issue. So realizing that one of our most important things is to keep our eyes on the big picture. What we're trying to do is consider how the course we're teaching right now fits into the curriculum, fits into the student's plan, fits into their life. That helps us in realizing what we need to focus on most as we try to make plans to recover from whatever disruption has happened. So with that, I want to go ahead and jump into some ideas. The very first thing that we want to emphasize is the importance of communication at times like this. The single biggest challenge you're going to encounter is the uncertainty that can be created by this type of disruption. So the more you communicate with students, the better. In fact, I'll go a step further than that. The first rule of communication, if you're trying to communicate effectively, is you deliver multiple messages through multiple channels. It's not enough to send one email out to your classes. What you need to do is you need to make an announcement, send an email, follow it with a post on Blackboard. The more you can reinforce the message you're trying to communicate, the more likely it is that students are going to be reassured. And keep in mind, the goal is not only that we're trying to communicate what the plan is, we're also trying to work through the attitude that can be created by a disruption. Along those lines, you have to realize too that our students are not all the same. There's some students, when you have a disruption like this, who say, this is terrible. I want to get as much as I can out of class. And they'll be looking at you to not only give them whatever you had planned for last week, but to see how much more you can give. There are other students whose focus is not so much on the material, but on the grade. Whether we like it or not, some students are very goal-driven, and the goal involves the grade. So making sure you communicate the impact of any changes in assignments or exams and how that will impact their grade is very important to reassuring them and getting them not only to participate, but to do the work necessary. Now, there's a third group of students. These are the ones that we don't talk about as much, but we do have to acknowledge them. Sometimes we have a student in our class who wants to know what is the minimum I can do to get an A. And you have to realize you need to communicate a different message to these students because they need to know what that minimum is. They need to know how they need to perform. And the message you give, the instruction you give, will help in motivating that student so they'll get the most out of it. There are a lot of students, though, who kind of fall into all three groups. These are students who, I say they're in the middle. If you take the extra time and motivate them, they'll do extra work. If you take the time to let them know that you want to help them get an A, they'll work toward an A. So we can also use this disruption as an opportunity to provide extra motivational materials for the students who can most benefit from that. So, how do you do it? Well, in communication, you always start out with a plan. Before you start communicating to your students, start with yourself. How are you handling the disruption? There's material that was supposed to be covered in the missed classes. If you have a Monday, Wednesday class, you've missed one class, that's not a big deal. If you have a Tuesday, Thursday class, you've missed a whole week, that's a much bigger deal. So you have to make a plan for how the material is going to be covered. If that involves revising the outline of the course, if that involves doubling up a week or two or changing due dates of assignments and text, make sure you know exactly what the plan is. Then you communicate the plan. You have to realize, again, different students care about different things. So make sure you talk about not only what is your expectation is for them, but how it will impact their grade and what they need to make sure they're doing. Again, you repeat the communication. The more often you give the message to the students, the more they're going to be reinforced. And finally, and this may be the most important thing, be flexible. It's very easy to come through a situation like we've had and create a new outline and say, this is the absolute outline, these are the absolute due dates. And there may be students who are still affected by the disruption, or maybe students who have other issues that have come out not related to the disruption. Keep in mind, your goal is less about trying to make sure you follow the plan exactly and more about trying to make sure that the student gets what they need to out of the course that you're teaching. Now, there are a variety of other tools that you can use. One of the most important ones of those is the feedback you get from the students. When you are communicating with them, that's only half the communication process. The other half is the loop back from the students. So you've got to make sure you're paying attention so you know what their concerns are. First and foremost, you're sending out messages. You need to make sure, did they get the message? We know all of our students are supposed to have good, active email addresses that we can reach through Blackboard or through MySC. Sometimes they never check that address. So we need to make sure they're getting the message. We also need to make sure we know what their concerns are. They may have a completely separate set of concerns, and by knowing about those, you can better address those. This can also be a motivational thing. There's some students who are willing to do more, to go above and beyond. By listening to them, you can find out what they're willing to do, how far they're willing to go, and take advantage of that. It will also give you information about the barriers they've encountered so you can help them overcome those barriers. And again, there may be a student in your class or a handful of students who live in the areas that are still affected. As we're doing this webinar right now, the floodwaters are still rising in the eastern part of the state. And if you're students, if you happen to have students who come from North Carolina, from the Wilmington area, we know they are badly affected. So make sure you talk with your students, you find out how they are affected, and you can adapt and be flexible to their needs. Because the end result is we want them to leave this university with the best possible education. The more flexibility we provide at this stage, the more we're going to be able to achieve that goal. So, having said that, there are some specific tools available to you that will help you in making up for some of the missed time. I'm going to turn the microphone over to Aisha Haynes, who's going to share that information. Aisha?
So now I will discuss some techniques and tools that can be used to recover from a canceled class. So after you look at recovering from your canceled class, you can ask yourself, at the end of my course, will my students know what they should know? And will my students be able to do what they should do? You may have to look at restructuring your course content, which may mean condensing or eliminated some course materials. So this can be focusing on the most important aspects of your course and focusing on outcomes versus content delivery. You may also have to look at revisiting your learning outcomes and work to design course activities that will enable students to achieve the learning objectives that have not already been met. You can also look at considering providing alternatives for students and asking yourself, can my course content be acquired by my students in different ways? Can I look at moving selected activities from in class to outside of class by using the Blackboard Learning Management System? The Blackboard Learning Management System has many tools that can be used to help you recover from canceled classes. You can utilize the Blackboard Learning Management System to create an online module that can be used to cover material that were missed because of the flood or because of the hurricane, or material that you may need to cover later on in the semester. And I will now discuss some materials that can be used in Blackboard. In terms of discussion and collaboration, the blog tool can be used to set the stage for student-to-student as well as student-to-instructor interactions that can be focused on various issues and course content in your course. With this tool, students can create entries, and students can also comment on those entries from students. So you can look at creating public blogs, which are between you and the student, public blogs which are between you and the entire class, and private blogs between yourself and the student. Another tool is the Blackboard discussion tool, which faculty create forums, students create threads, and students can communicate that way as an extension of the class, or to talk outside of class. So those are two discussion and Blackboard collaboration tools, blogs as well as discussion boards. There's a feature in Blackboard called VoiceThread, which is conversations in the cloud. With VoiceThread, you would upload an artifact like a picture or some type of text or a document, and allow students to make comments on that artifact. And you will actually see a picture of your students or an icon representing your students for this discussion. Students can make comments on VoiceThreads in a variety of different ways, like webcam, like audio, text, etc. You can also look at having students collaborate and discuss various things using a wiki, which is a website in Blackboard that can be edited by all who have access to it. And this can be used for students to collaborate on various projects or assignments. You can look at uploading your lecture notes, study guides, or journal articles in Blackboard. And if you have any questions with doing any of these things, feel free to contact an instructional designer at the CTE. An additional tool in Blackboard is the test and quiz feature. This is a powerful tool in Blackboard. There are 17 different types of questions that can be used, and many of them can be automatically graded by Blackboard, like multiple choice, true, false, and matching, etc. A good thing about the Blackboard test and quiz feature is that you can set date and time restrictions. You can set a timer. If you have students who need extra time on tests, you can set test exceptions for those particular students. So the Blackboard test and quiz feature is very powerful. You can also create pools of questions, so that if you have 100 questions, you can select 25 so that no two students will get the same questions. You can also randomize questions as well as answers with the Blackboard test and quiz feature. You can also look at the assignment feature, where students can upload assignments into Blackboard, and you can automatically see those assignments in the Blackboard Grade Center. You can do inline grading, and you can also use a rubric to grade assignments right there in Blackboard. And you can also download all assignments, grade them, and then enter the grades into the Blackboard Grade Center. So the assignment feature is a great way for students to complete and turn in assignments. You can also look at using open educational resources, OER, and these are materials that are created by other people that you can use in your classes. And some websites that you can use are OER Commons, which is oercommons.org, as well as Merlot. So once again, you can use materials that are already created to include within your courses. You can also look at creating online lectures. And one key thing is to have these lectures to be short. You don't want to just record your 60-minute or hour 15-minute lecture and post that online for students to see. You're going to want to make these short, so 5 to 10 minutes based on topics, and then you can post those links into Blackboard. A great thing is that you can upload your videos to YouTube as unlisted and post that link into Blackboard. One good thing about YouTube is that your videos can be automatically captioned for accessibility. And if the captions aren't 100% accurate, then you can go in and make changes to those captions. I mentioned the tool VoiceThread earlier. This tool can also be used to create online lectures, as well as a tool called Adobe Presenter, which can be purchased through Self-Service Carolina for about $90 per semester. It's media-rich voice over PowerPoint. My favorite tool is called Screencast-O-Matic, and this allows you to record your computer screen as well as your voice. And if you have a webcam, you can record your webcam as well. You can record free for up to 15 minutes. You can upload that video to YouTube as unlisted, get those captions, and then post a link into the Blackboard Learning Management System. How about considering online meetings or an additional online class using tools such as Blackboard Collaborate, which is built right into Blackboard, Skype, Google Hangouts, or Adobe Connect. Adobe Connect is sponsored here by the university. You can get a free account by contacting the Division of Information Technology. And with Blackboard Collaborate as well as Adobe Connect, those sessions can be recorded, so if someone was not able to attend that online class or online meeting, you can send that link out or put it in Blackboard and they can see it. You can also look at supplementing your in-person or office hours with virtual office hours using the same tools mentioned here. So some additional thoughts, as has been mentioned, flexibility. You want to look at being flexible in terms of setting deadlines as well as requiring make-up work. You don't want to try to cram too much information into your remaining class sessions by combining lectures, because active learning is still very important in engaging and stimulating long-term learning. And once again, looking at the long-term goal of the class, sometimes we get so wrapped up in completing a list of small things that we forget about the big pictures of our classes. So it's very helpful to just take a step back and look at how your course fits into the curricula and then make adjustments to ensure that after completing the course, that students will be prepared for the next term. Turn it back over to Augie.
Thanks, Aisha. Now, you should know we scheduled this for about 45 minutes, so we would have plenty of time for questions. I'm going to make a few comments, but I want to let you know if you have any questions at all about how to cope with the disruption, this is the time to send them in. If you're watching via Adobe Connect, just simply type your question into the box, and we have a big screen here in the Center for Teaching Excellence that will tell us what you're asking. In the meantime, I want to stress a couple of things. It's often been said that the measure of character is not how you respond when everything's going well. It's how you respond when you have challenges. One of the opportunities we have when we have disruptions like this is to show our character to our students and help them develop character. If our reaction to a disruption like this is that all we're doing is complaining, well, I wish we hadn't flooded, I wish we hadn't canceled. You know, life is full of floods. Life is full of cancellations. There are definitely, throughout the lives of your students, going to be things that are beyond their control. We had a combination of two things beyond our control. First, we had a hurricane coming that obviously no one can control unless you're in that secret government office that controls the weather. Secondly, we have state law that says when a county office closes, any educational institution in that county has to close as well. Now, that's just simply a fact of life for the university. So when the governor closed the Richland County offices to prepare for the evacuees who came from other parts of the state to Columbia, the university closed. And we did lose 4 days. But that's 4 days that we also have plenty of time to make up. So again, how you react, how you interface with the students, that's going to teach them lessons that go far beyond the curricula that you involved. So we're looking at the questions that are coming in. And again, on Adobe Connect, if you have a question, just type it into the box and those questions will be relayed to us. So we have the whole CTE team standing by, so anyone who has a question, feel free to ask. And with people who are watching here live, if you have questions, please feel free to hold forth. The first question is, when the university closes, is it required to cancel online classes? The answer is yes. And the reason we require the cancellation of online classes, even though we presume the students might be safe, is that's not a good presumption. It could be that wherever the student is, that they have lost power, or they have lost internet access, or some other facility. So for the time being, the policy of the university is when classes are canceled, all classes are canceled, and that's trying to be as fair as possible to all the students at the university. So that's a great question. We appreciate having that. That doesn't mean that we can't use the online tools to communicate with students. I know I sent emails to the students in both of my classes as the disruption was taking place, saying, here is what I plan to do, here's what we're going to do when things start again. So they would realize that we are actively working. But in terms of actually requiring them physically, it may not be safe for them to come to the library, or may not even be safe for them to be online. So, are there any other questions that anyone has? It's nice to be in a position where we can answer any questions that happen to be coming up. Again, if you have questions, just type them into Adobe Connect. And if you're watching the recording of this, if you have a question, you can just send that in an email. We are cte@sc.edu, and that message will be forwarded to a member of our staff who will give you a personal reply. So our goal is to be as responsive as we can to help you in the classroom. All right, I think we have answered every question there is. If other questions come in, again, use our email, cte@sc.edu, and we will be sure to get back with you. Oh, here we go. One other question just came in. Can we ask students to complete work during the closure in order to prepare for class when we reopen? If what you're asking students to do is regular homework that would have been due anyway, my answer would be yes. But if what you're asking the students to do is to do work that is a new assignment, you can't have a due date for that until after classes resume, because, again, we can't be sure that they have access to the resources they need. They might need library resources or internet access. So the goal is to be flexible. But if you had an assignment, for example, that you put in your syllabus that is due at the end of this week, you have an option to give an extension or to say you've had the time to complete the work and there's enough time. I would definitely say that if you had an assignment due Monday or Tuesday of this week, please be as flexible as you can. Again, part of what the students are dealing with is uncertainty. But come back with a specific due date, and that will certainly help them. All right, if there are no further questions, I see our question screen now has a PowerPoint on it, so it could be we have closed out. I want to thank you for your attendance, and again, please send us your any questions you have to the Center for Teaching Excellence. Also, please go online if you're interested in any of the programs we offer. The reason the provost provides the resources for the Center for Teaching Excellence is to help you develop the best materials you can for your classes. So if you have a course that you're putting together and want some help in designing the course, if you're going online for the first time, we can provide one-on-one consultation, as well as providing short courses. And we also provide regular information about teaching at the university. Please consider following us in social media. We have a regular Twitter feed. You can link to these from the CTE website as well. Our Twitter feed, our Facebook page, and our LinkedIn page all provide regular updates on programming that's coming, as well as daily teaching tips. We try to provide a teaching tip every day from one of the award-winning faculty here at the university. And we also provide links to research about teaching and classroom activities as we find it. Here's another question that came in. How can we access today's recording? Will you send it out to faculty or post it on your website? We're going to post this recording on the website, so you can tell anyone if you come to the CTE main page after tomorrow. We have to obviously process the recording and put it online, but after tomorrow, the recording of this webinar is going to be on the main page. So if you just come to cte.sc.edu, there will be a link to the webinar and you can have the video played. Here's another question. Have to wait as the question comes in. We have a slight digital delay as the questions are coming into the system. How can CTE help faculty to adjust their course materials? We have a team of instructional designers who are familiar with a variety of modalities in teaching. What you simply do is call us or stop by. If you call for an appointment, we can make sure someone's available, but our offices are in the library, Thomas Cooper Library on the 5th floor, one floor below the main floor. And what we will do is we'll work with you individually on your course, look at what your assignments are, and help you make suggestions. So you don't have to have an appointment to stop in, but we prefer that you have appointments. And again, if you want to make an appointment, you can either call CTE. The number is, I want to make sure I get this right, 78322. That's 777-8322. You can call and make an appointment.
Also, you don't have to come to the library. We do distance appointments as well.
Okay, so we can talk to you over the phone. We can talk to you via Skype. We can talk to you via Collaborate. We can talk to you via Hangout. So if there's a technology we have access to, we're eager to use, even Adobe Connect. We're eager to have our staff help you out. Again, the reason the staff is here is to make your life easier. So, checking to see if we have any other questions coming in. And seeing none, again, I want to thank you for taking the time. Please share with your colleagues the fact that we have these tips available. There's also a handout. It's a simple 2-page PDF that's downloadable from the CTE website that has tips for dealing with inclement weather. So, again, on behalf of the Center for Teaching Excellence, thanks very much for participating in the webinar.